будь ласка, чи гарно нас чути, видно, чи все окей? Напишіть, будь ласка, в чаті. Чудово. Дякую вам. Я думаю, зараз буквально 2 хвилинки і будемо починати наш вебінар. Спочатку хотіла б сказати, що в разі, якщо почнеться повітряна тривога, ми продовжимо, ми запишемо до кінця наш вебінар, а потім надішлемо вам запис, щоб ви могли прослухати його вже по можливості. Я сподіваюся, нічого не перерве наш з вами сьогоднішній вебінар, але так, на всякий випадок я мала це сказати. Я думаю, ми можемо розпочинати. Всім добрий день ще раз. Мене звати Ганна Бакал. Я працюю в компанії АЛТ Україна і відповідаю за напрямок рідинної та іонної хроматографії компанії Thermo Fisher Scientific. Компанія Thermo Fisher Scientific – це наш основний партнер, з яким ми працюємо вже багато років, і я думаю, ви всі знайомі з їхньою продукцією, чи то загальнолабораторного обладнання, чи то з хроматографії, неважливо. Сьогодні наш вебінар присвячений огляду системи рідинної хроматографії Vanquish Core та її можливостям для фармацевтичної лабораторії QA/QC. Нашим спікером буде наш партнер Alexandra Manka з компанії Thermo Fisher Scientific, яка відповідальна за напрямок рідинної хроматографії. Якщо у вас будуть якісь запитання, пишіть в чат. В кінці ми зробимо сесію з запитаннями-відповідями. Також хотіла сказати, що сьогодні у нас вебінар буде англійською мовою. Якщо вам буде, наприклад, потрібно, ми зможемо пізніше зробити, наприклад, титри на запису, або якщо там, я знаю, будуть ще якісь додаткові питання, можете писати їх, наприклад, українською. І ми постараємось на них відповісти. Тому, я думаю, ми можемо починати. Alexandra, hello. I think we can start. So, please. Oh, we don't hear you.
Hello, good morning.
Oh.
I muted it on my on my device. Now you can hear me, right? And you can
Yes.
see my screen.
Yes.
Okay. Wonderful. So good morning. Hello, everyone, also from my end. Unfortunately, I speak only English and German, so I rather do this in English for you. I hope you can understand me. So let's give you just a little information about myself. So my name is Alexandra Manka. I have a PhD in chemistry, and I work for Thermo Fisher Scientific for over 9 years now, in various roles. And I'm the technical sales manager for HPLC since 5 years. So I support our partners like ALT Ukraine. So I work together with Hannah and the team of ALT. And so Hannah and the team invited me today to give this presentation on the Vanquish product line. So I will tell you a little bit about the Thermo Scientific Vanquish UHPLC systems and their capabilities for pharma. I know the original title mentioned the Vanquish Core, and I will talk mainly about the Vanquish Core for pharma QA/QC, but I extended the presentation a little bit so that it covers more pharma. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat box. And I guess Hannah will translate them for me so that I can answer them for you. Okay. So let's get started. And first of all, I want to show you our portfolio. So this is the Thermo Scientific LC system portfolio. And what you see up here is that we have different varieties of analytical LC systems. Speaking of the Vanquish Core, the Vanquish Flex, and the Vanquish Horizon mainly. Then we have what we call the low-flow LC systems, which is the Vanquish Neo. I will not talk about this in this presentation. And we have then what we call application-specific LC systems. So these are dedicated setups. I will not talk so much about those. I just want to mention those so that you know we have a solution for almost any analytical challenge that you might face in your lab. So if you go through this presentation and you think, oh, this will not solve my challenge, please go back to Hannah, discuss it with her. I can help you, and we will definitely find a solution. I will focus mainly on the analytical LC systems during this presentation. What do I mean with analytical LC systems? What am I talking about? So as said, it's mainly the Vanquish Core, the Vanquish Flex, and the Vanquish Horizon, but I put something in between here, which is the Vanquish Duo, which is our productivity platform. And I will talk about this also a little bit. And we thought about tech words. So what would be one word to describe a system? And for the Vanquish Core, we picked dependability. So we think the Vanquish Core is really a dependable workhorse for QA/QC. And I will show you during this presentation why we think that. Then for the Vanquish Flex, it was quite obvious, flexibility. And I will show you why the Vanquish Flex might be the ideal choice for your lab if you need flexibility and a UHPLC setup. I will not talk so much about the Vanquish Horizon. I just want to mention it here. This is our performance tier. So it's the only system on the market that can go up to 1,500 bar. So it has the highest pressure capability. You might ask yourself, why do I need that? It's for really challenging analytical problems where you need to resolve a lot of peaks in a short time frame. And then we have the Vanquish Duo, which is our productivity instrument because it can actually do what two instruments can do, but in one system. And I will show you that a little later. So let's start with the basic setup of those systems. So you see they all look very similar. So the outlining, so the setup is the same for all of those. So we have on the bottom of the system, the pump. So here you can choose between low pressure gradient or quaternary pumps, high pressure gradient, binary pumps. We have something that we call the dual gradient pump, which is basically two pumps in one housing. And you will see that later on during this presentation, and also isocratic pumps. All of those come with automatic purging. And we improved the performance when we look back from our predecessor, the Ultimate 3000. When we moved on to the Vanquish platform, we always did improvements to all our modules. Then we have in the middle the autosampler. So for the Vanquish Core, we have a cooled or non-cooled version. For the Flex and the Horizon, they are all cooled. We have something that we call a tunable gradient delay volume device in there, or the metering device, and I will show you that later on. We can inject up to 1 milliliter with our systems, and we have something that we call liquid handling that allows for some sample prep in the autosample, basically, like in needle mixing and some dilution steps. So there are some things that you can do with the autosampler except for injecting. Then we have the column compartment on the side. So it's a vertical setup of the column compartment. We have two variants of that, an 85%, one that can go up to 85 degrees C and one that can go to 120 degrees C. We offer active and passive preheating. We have valve holders in there. So on the top and on the bottom of the column compartment, you can insert valves if you need to do column switching or if you need to do DLC. You can do this all in the column compartment. And we have something that we call the Vanquish Core method transfer kit that can be also inserted into a valve holder. And I will show you that also a little later when we come to method transfer. Then we have the detector on the top. We offer different kind of detectors. We have direct array detection, multiple wavelengths detection, variable wavelengths detection, fluorescence detection. And then we have what we call the charged aerosol detector, a very unique detector, and I will also speak a little bit more about that. And of course, you can add any mass spectrometer to our LCs. And we have a single core that is called the ISQ, which is what we mainly say it's a mass detector for chromatographers because it's very easy to use and you don't need to have MS knowledge to use the ISQ. What else do we have here? So we have this little black box. This is our solvent monitor. This is an optional item, so you don't have to add it, but it gives you a lot of convenience because you can measure the solvent consumption and the waste accumulation of up to 8 solvents, and it helps you to predict the solvent use. So before you start a sequence, it will tell you if you have enough solvents. And then we have the Vanquish user interface, which is a monitor that gives you additional information about the system at a glance. And I will show you also a little bit more about that later on. So as I said, the Vanquish Core is for us the dependability system, the most dependable system, the QA/QC workhorse. So why is that? So the Vanquish Core was designed to enable you, the user, to deliver exceptional results all the time, to enhance your lab productivity with some system intelligence, and to make it easy to upgrade your system in the current infrastructure that you have. So this is why we call it simple to the core. And I want to show you, first of all, some results that were measured on the Vanquish Core. So here we have an overlay of 6 chromatograms measured on a competitor instrument and the same analysis done on the Vanquish Core. What you can see here at a glance is that on the Vanquish Core, you can't tell a difference between the different runs. So they all look the same. So you get really precise and dependable results with a better run-to-run repeatability. So they look all the same. And that is also reflected then in the retention time RSDs. So here in purple, you have the retention time RSDs for the Vanquish Core, and in blue, the ones measured on a competitor instruments. So you see on the Vanquish Core, the retention time RSDs are always smaller. That means the peaks are more, they come always at the same time. Same applies to the area RSDs. So the area, is very important for quantification. And on the Vanquish Core, these RSDs fluctuate much less than on the competitor instruments. So you get really the same results every time you do your analysis. And you might say, okay, you did it maybe on one instrument, so what's in for me, right? So we did that not only on one instrument, but we did it on 8 systems and 7 labs around the globe. So we did some inter-system reproducibility testing on different sites throughout the world. So in Gammering, in Shanghai, in China, in Dresden, in Germany, in Birmingham, and Nottingham in the UK, and also in the US. And what you see here is that all systems really passed the system suitability testing with remarkable reproducibility. So you get the resolution on this peaks is always above the limit of 1.5, so you can always resolve these 2 peaks. That means also we did a long-term stability testing on those. We did 3 days operation, 24/7, so the system running and running and running, 170 injections. So same results over long time, and doesn't matter which system, which machine around the globe, all of those gave very comparable results. So it's really a robust workhorse for routine labs where you have a lot of the same instruments that do the same analysis all the time. But when it comes to purchasing of a system, right, you don't think only of the robustness and the instrument, you mainly think about the purchase price. But what you should think of a little bit more is also the utilization and the productivity that the system will give you back, and the cost of maintenance and the operational cost. So you should always consider, what do I pay for maintenance? Right? Because you might have a lot of systems in your lab, and when you have to pay maintenance cost for each of the systems, it multiplies very rapidly to a very high amount. And with the Vanquish systems, you get really high productivity, high uptime, and lower cost of maintenance and operational cost. Why is that? It's also easy to use, easy to diagnose. I will show you later on. We have some guided diagnostics built in case something is going wrong. You can diagnose the system very easily. It's very simple to operate. I will show you also later on the maintenance videos, not the videos, but where you can find them. So we have a very clear instrument setup. So when you look at the system, you can follow the flow paths very easily. It's very easy understandable, and it's very easy to service. So this whole system is basically maintenance free except of the pump. So in the pump, of course, you have some wear parts like the seals. So those need replacement once a year. But despite of that, nothing else need really replacement on the whole system. It's maintained, the maintenance is done once a year, but it's a visual inspection, and then the parts that might need replacement are being replaced, but there are not too many parts that need replacement on a regular base. So it's very easy to understand, easy to service, and with the waste level monitoring, you get also added safety features to your system. So this is again the Vanquish solvent monitor. And so you see we have here some dipsticks going into the bottles. And what it does is really measures how much is in those bottles. If you refill the bottle, this is also tracked in the Chameleon audit trail. And we have a 4-channel and 8-channel version of that. So you can use it for 4 or up to 8 bottles, including waste. And it will give you warnings when you don't have enough solvents for your sequence. It will tell you you need to refill. It will also give you a warning when your waste container is about to be filled up. So it gives you enhanced safety in your lab. Then we have implemented into the Vanquish Core some health checks. Those are set up during installation. And so these are tests that run in the background when the system is not in use. When it's in use, you have carefree operation, but when it's done with a sequence, it sits there overnight. It does those tests in the background. And if you need to do something, it notifies you. And if it doesn't notify you, everything is fine. But if you want to see the results of those tests, you can always look them up in Chameleon. Then I mentioned the Vanquish user interface. So this nice display, which is also an optional item. You don't have to buy it, but it's a really nice add-on because it gives you a lot of information at a glance. So you get information about the different modules. So here you see information about the pump, what is the pressure, what is the flow rate, what is the gradient composition. You get information about the outer sampler, which position was injected from, what is the temperature, what is the volume that was injected. And here on the column oven, the temperature of it, and if you have valves installed, the position of the valves. You have here green heart that gives you the health status in the system of the system. I told you just the health checks in the background. So when everything is working fine, it gives you a green heart. It is fully compliant. You can touch it with gloves. You cannot start or abort a sequence from here. And it has also a navigation bar on the side where you can dive a little deeper into some information. And as I mentioned, there are some maintenance videos. So on this icon, when you click on this, you can see the maintenance videos that we have. And on those, you can see how to replace the pump head, how to replace the piston seals and the support ring and the check valves on the pump if you need to do that. So for the sampler, you can watch how to replace the sample loop in case you need to install maybe a bigger or a smaller loop, how to replace the needle unit and the needle seat in, for example, if your needle is bent or for whatever reason. And on the UV detector, you can see how to replace the flow cell in case you want to use a different flow cell, and how to replace the UV lamp, because the UV lamp is a wear part. I mean, it burns out at some time, and then you don't have to go into the manual and see how to replace it. You can watch the video right at the system while doing the maintenance. Then I said we have also some system diagnostics. So we have some tests in Chameleon that can be also done from the Vanquish user interface, like a tightness test, a lamp intensity test, a shutter motor test, grating motor test. So these tests help you if something is going on to troubleshoot the system faster, and also to do some checks after some system repair. How does that all help you? It helps you to have a higher uptime and save on the maintenance end. So with the health checks, you have less interruptions and faster troubleshooting. So you get your system up to speed faster. You have some guided diagnostics that gives you less service calls and less service cost per system. Then we have the user interface that helps you saving time by seeing what's going on. You don't have to go into Chameleon all the time. You can watch at the system what's going on. And with the solvent monitoring, you have a higher sequence success rate because you will not run dry during a run anymore. The system will let you know before. And with the Viper finger tight fittings, all of our systems are equipped with Vipers. You can change your column also very fast. And I didn't mention that, but we have also the Smart Inject technology that can help you to save on some column cost. So in total, the Vanquish Core is a robust workhouse anytime, anywhere. It has a very intuitive design. This gives you a low risk of human errors because it's really easy to understand and to work with. You have carefree operation, less time and cost spent on service, and especially with the solvent monitor, you can generate a safe working environment. Now you might say, okay, this sounds to be a nice system, but I have so many Agilent, Waters, or Shimatsu systems in my lab, and I would need to transfer those methods onto the Vanquish Core. How am I going to do that? How can you help me with that? What do I need to consider? And I will show you how easy it is to do method transfer from a competitor system onto the Vanquish Core. Because some people think that method transfer is very painful and time consuming and that there's no systematic approach. So they want to avoid that. So they stick to the systems they have in lab already. But I want to show you here that with the Vanquish Core, we can make the chromatograms look the same on the Vanquish Core, which is very easy. So what do we need to consider when you do method transfer? So first of all, it's a gradient delay volume. So this is the inner volume of the system, and it's different for any system. Then you have thermostating, how you heat your column, and also some other effects. But the main aspect is the GDV variation. And for that, we have some tools implemented into the Vanquish Core to really mimic all our competitor systems with a tunable gradient delay volume and an optional kit, which is the Vanquish Core method transfer kit. We have then very flexible thermostating. You can also here mimic any other system. And we have also some clear guidelines how to do the method transfer. But I want to show you a little bit more on the GDV adjustment. Because as said, the gradient delay volumes, so the inner volume of the systems, differ for every manufacturer. But we have this tunable gradient delay volume device, this metering device, in our systems. How does that work? My mouse is not okay. So we have the gradient delay volume device, or the metering device, is a little piston, and it has some inner volume. So the inner volume in there is defined by the position of the piston, and you can move it. So you can change it between 25 and 230 microliter. So you have 200 microliters of gradient delay volume you can play with. So it can be smaller or bigger, whatever you prefer. Then we have a method transfer kit, which is a valve and a loop. So this valve is installed in the auto sampler with the loop on it, a 200 microliter loop, and then you can switch this loop in and out of the flow path. So the flow path is either 200 microliter smaller or bigger. Benefit of that is once it's installed and qualified, it's fully compliant. You don't have to do any changes to the hardware setup, and it's very simple to use in Chromeleon. And you see it in the audit trail if it was used or not. And with that, you can shift your chromatograms back and forth with the different gradient delay volumes. How does that help? You can mimic really any competitor system on the market. So here you see the overview, the GDVs from different competitor systems. For example, from the Waters Acuity Arc, Shimatsu 2010, Waters Alliance quaternary, Agilent 1260 quaternary. So these are all quaternary systems, so you have to stick to the same pump time. And with the Vanquish Core, with the master transfer kit, you can really cover the whole range that is represented by these competitive systems. When you do the method transfer then, so here we have an example. So this chromatogram on the top was measured on a competitor system, and we measured exactly the same on the Vanquish Core. So you get really same results, but you get a better separation of the critical peak pair. That you can see also with the peak width. So when you look at the peak width, when you measure on the Vanquish Core, so again here in purple, the peak width is always smaller. So you get narrower and sharper peaks on the Vanquish Core, while the relative peak area stays the same. So this allows you a better separation of the critical peak pair. And we have some guidelines and examples of how to do the method transfer, from different systems. So I'm coming from the Ultimate 3000, our predecessor, and the Agilent 1260, the Waters Alliance. So we give you some guidance how to do the method transfer. That was it on the Vanquish Core. Now, I will go to the Vanquish Flex a little bit and tell you a little bit about the Flex. And this is a UHPL system, but it's a very flexible UHPLC system, so you can also run your legacy HPLC methods on the Vanquish Flex. And so it gives you really utmost flexibility for any HPLC and UHPLC setup. How does that do it? So it was, again, here in the Vanquish Flex, was designed to give you the extended capabilities of the higher pressure with an unparalleled flexibility and control. So you have the same options. Also here you see the sovereign monitor and the user interface of the system. It can really accommodate a wide range of HPLC and UHPLC methods, and it will also help you with fast parameter screening, and it's the ideal front end if you want to run your system with a mass spectrometer. As said, so the Vanquish Flex is our system of choice when it comes to mass spectrometry. We will recommend the Vanquish Flex to you. You can, of course, run also the Vanquish Core and connect it to a mass spectrometer, but the Flex will give you the benefits of running also UHPLC methods. Then we have some unique 2D LC workflows for two-dimensional hard cut LC or online SPE. So this is rather done on the Vanquish Flex and on the Vanquish Core. And we can mix and match also the Flex to your needs to get the system of your choice. The one big differentiator when it comes to the Flex, it's biocompatible. The Vanquish Core is made out of stainless steel. So it's a stainless steel system with iron in the flow paths. This is not compatible with biological samples, while the Vanquish Flex is made of an alloy that is called MP35N, no steel, no iron, and you can run your biological samples on it at up to 1000 bar. And if you don't need that, it doesn't hurt to have it. And what I want to show you here a little bit, going a little bit back away from the technical things, we had a case study with one internal customer of ours. I don't know if you know the company Patheon. Patheon is a contract research and contract manufacturing organization that was acquired by Thermo Fisher Scientific 6 years ago. So 6 years ago, Thermo bought Patheon, and Patheon is a sad, huge company. They have a lot of labs and they do contract research and contract manufacturing for different other pharma companies. And they had hundreds of systems in the lab. And none of those were Vanquish systems. They had just Agilent and Waters systems in their labs. So we asked them to get the Vanquish systems. So they picked the Vanquish Flex, and I will show you later why. And they tested it. So they did some system suitability testing and compared from the Vanquish Flex and the competitor system. So they checked for the signal to noise, theoretical plates, tailing factor, RSDs, the recovery of the check standard, and the resolution. And they figured that most important to them was that the tailing factor was smaller on the Vanquish Flex, because with that they had less system suitability failures and could make more use out of the columns. So they got a longer column usage on the Vanquish Flex systems and better system suitability testing compared to, I don't know if this was Agilent or Water systems, but to a competitor instrument. So they started getting more and more Vanquish Flex systems. So this is not just one system compared to one systems. So in total, in the Patheon Canada side, they had 163 LCs in total. And 41 of that were Vanquish. That means 60, 70 Vanquish systems. So you see the split, roughly 40 to 60, just 40 were the Vanquish, but when they looked at the instrument issues, only 20% of the instrument issues were related to the Vanquish, and the 80% of the instrument issues were related to waters and Agilent systems. And last time I got the questions, oh, they had maybe old waters and Agilent systems, but we checked the systems, and the water systems were I-class and H-class systems, and the Agilent systems were 1260 and 1290, so the latest versions of the system. So it's not that they have used old waters and Agilent systems and we compare old systems to new systems here. It was really the systems that were sitting in the labs, not some systems that we picked. Okay, so it's really less likely to get less system suitability issues with the Vanquish systems. Also here at a different site, and in Pantheon in Toronto, here the split was number of LCs of competitors were slightly over 50, and 47% were our Vanquish systems. And also here the system suitability failures were much less on the Vanquish systems. So they started to use the Vanquish more, so the total system operation time was over 60% on the Vanquish side, despite that less than 50% of the systems in their lab were Vanquish systems. So what they saw was that they had a reduction of 50% in system suitability failures when working with the Vanquish systems, and that saved them over 2,000 hours of investigation time. So a huge time saving, and they did the math. They calculated like 2,000 hours. They did the math with roughly $150 per hour. And this, when you take this 2,000 hours into account, multiplying with $150 per hour, so this generated a saving for them of above 300K per year. So huge saving when you do the math in operating in hours of manpower that you need. So in total, what was their Vanquish Flex experience? As said, they had less system suitability failures with that less repeat work. They got improved resolution, better peak shapes and precision, and also a reduced carryover was what they saw. What they did is also they used the Vanquish Flex, and they used older HPLC methods on it and newer UHPLC methods. And when they compared to what they had in their labs, compared to the 1290s and the H-class, which are UPLCs or UHPLCs, they saw that those systems were not so well suited for the older methods, while the 1260 and the Waters Arc systems couldn't support their UHPLC methods. So they had to think, which system do I need to use for what method? And with the Vanquish Flex, they had the maximum flexibility to use any system with any method. I have to say, Pantheon, although is a Thermo Fisher side now, is fully on Empower. They were, as said, we acquired them, and they refused to change to Chameleon at the time because it was too much work for them. So they stayed on Empower, and all these tests were done. All the systems, I told you it was 67 Vanquish Flex systems, they were all run in an Empower 3 environment. So it works not only in Chameleon, it works very well also in Empower. And as I mentioned before, the Vanquish Flex is fully biocompatible. So they didn't have to think which system to use for which sample. and it helps them to reduce time swapping the tubing between small molecule and large molecule systems. They didn't have to dedicate special systems to their biological samples. And what they told us is that they really like the MP35N Viper lines because they have the higher pressure limit. So they could really run their biological samples at the 1,000 bar high pressure rate. That was it for the Vanquish Flex Pantheon case study. And what I want to mention here again is you can really mix and match the components of the flex, the core, and the resin to make your instrument configuration. We have some specialized solution for any challenge. As I mentioned already in the beginning, I will just mention those for you. If you have more questions, please feel free to reach out. As I said, we have online 2D systems. We have a dedicated method development system set up. We have high throughput systems. So different versions to maximize throughput, maybe connected to mass spectrometer. We have what we call the analytical purification system. This is a system with a fraction collector. So if you need to collect fractions, we can do that too. We have an inverse gradient setup, and also for multiplexing, we have the Transcend product line. But I want to show you a little bit more on the high productivity end with the Vanquish Duo, which I like to call the solution for endless samples. How is this system the solution for endless samples? So the Vanquish Duo was designed for chromatographers that need to do more with less or get more information with less. So what the system looks like is it looks like a normal system. It's just a little bit higher because you need 2 detectors. But you don't need to have additional bench space because the width can be the same as for standard system. So you need to do more, but you don't have space for more. The Vanquish Duo might be a system to consider. How does that work? So this is the setup. So here you see also an example with 2 column compartments, but you can have 1 or 2. Depends on your needs. But here you have a dual pump, so which is 2 pumps in 1 housing, which work really independently. So you can have these 2 pumps, or you could combine any 2 pumps that you like. Then you have the dual split sampler in the middle. And the dual split sampler has really 2 injection ports and 2 injection needles. So really 2 separate flow paths, and then going from the pump left through the column left through the detector left. You can have those 2 columns in 2 column compartments or on 1. And then from the right one, you go through the column right to the detector right. And you can combine any 2 detectors you want on one system. So you can do 2 different things or 2 of the same things. How does that help you? You can really run 2 identical things. So if you have 100 samples, you can do 50 on the left, 50 on the right, and be finished in half the time. And the results look the same. Doesn't matter which side of the system you use. Or if you need to do 2 different analyses on 1 sample, you place the sample in the auto sampler. You don't have to do 2 samples. You can have 1 sample, and then you take it on the left channel or you take it on the right channel and get more information. And here we have also an example for charge variant analysis on the one side of the system and an aggregate analysis on the other side of the system with the same sample. That was it on the Vanquish Duo. And now just my last things will be about the charged aerosol detector. Because the charged aerosol detector is very unique. What is the charged aerosol detector about? It's a universal detector for all non- and semi-volatile compounds. Because if you want to detect an analyte, if you want to use UV detection, it has to absorb in the UV range. If you want to have fluorescence detection, it needs to fluoresce. For the charged aerosol detection, the prerequisite for the analyte is that it has to be either non or semi-volatile, but that's it. And you get very uniform response independent of the analyte. So it doesn't matter which analyte you have, the charged aerosol detector will give you the same signal. It's very sensitive, high sensitivity, and has a very wide dynamic range when you compare to refractive index or evaporative light scattering detection. So here these have an order of magnitude of 10 to 3, while with the charged aerosol detector, we can get to 10 to the 5. With that, you can quantify low-level and high-level compounds in one single run. So here you see examples. This is the Corona Vio charged aerosol detector that can be used with any system, third-party HPLC instruments, so it doesn't need to be connected to a Vanquish systems. For the Vanquish system, we have a dedicated Vanquish charged aerosol detector that is implemented into the Vanquish system stack. So with what do I mean again with universal? Here it's a little bit better shown. You have one chromatogram measured at 220 nanometers with no UV detector, or 254 nanometers. So here you see 3 peaks. Here you see one main peak and 2 little ones. While in the charged aerosol detector, you see that you have 4 peaks here. Similar to the mass spectrometer. So the mass spectrometer sees 2 peaks and a shoulder, because also the mass spectrometer, so for the mass spectrometer, the samples need to be ionized. So it relies on ionizability of the analyte. The charged aerosol detector doesn't need that. It just uses volatility as a discriminator. What do I mean with uniform response again? So we did injection of 0.5 microgram of different, really different compounds. Here you see sugars like fructose, glucose. You see cortisone, uracil, acetaminophen, really different compounds. And the peak area is very similar for these 33 non-volatile compounds and deviates only in the range of 7.2%. So really uniform response for all analytes. What do I mean with high sensitivity? So here you see the example of lithium, sodium, potassium, and we can go to the SAP nanogram range when we look at the limit of detection, limit of quantification for those. And we can go that low, even though there is also a main peak like here. So in this chromatogram up here, you hardly see this little peak down here. But with a charged aerosol detector, you can really quantify those little one and those big one in a single run. So no need to do some dilution for the bigger peaks. And I asked some customers what would be the ideal system, and some of them told me, I have the ideal system in my lab. And I was wondering, how does that look for you? And they told me it's a system that consists of a system with a traditional UV detector, a charged aerosol detector, and a mass spectrometer. And I want to show you these examples here from extractables and leachables where we did some analysis with this multi-detector setup, and I will show you why. So here in this example, we had the setup with an inverse gradient. I will not tell anything about that because this will take us too far, but just for you, with the pump, the split sample, the column compartment. Then we had a diode array detector and a charged aerosol detector, and that was connected to an ISQ, a single quad system. And we did some analysis of extractables and leachables from some culture bags. So we had a culture bag, we had the single use, so the stuff in there, and we wanted to see if we have some extractables and leachables from that. And what we saw with this setup, so this is how it looks, that some of the peaks you would see with UV and the CAD, so the green ones in here, right? So you see those in both chromatograms. Some of them you see only in UV, so these would be volatile, so you cannot see them in the charged aerosol detector. But some of them you can see only in the charged aerosol detector. These ones are highlighted in red. But with a combination of UV, CAD, and mass spectrometer, you get to see all the analytes in this list. So you can pick if you have the choice to see them in all three detectors. You can decide where you want to do the quantification. But sometimes you don't have a choice, like with these two, icosane and tetracosane, you couldn't see them even in the mass spectrometer. So the CAD was the only choice to do the quantification of those and to see them. So with the combination of those three detectors, you get to know and to see all compounds in your mixtures. And with that, I want to summarize a little bit. I hope I could convince you that the Vanquish Core is really a workhorse for pharma QA/QC, and that you can do a very simple method transfer from any system going onto a Vanquish Core system. That the Vanquish Flex gives you very high flexibility, especially if you want to run HPLC and UHPLC, or maybe if you want to speed up from HPLC to UHPLC, and it's biocompatible to give you also the flexibility to run your biopharma samples if you have some of those. You can really mix and match all of our modules for an individual setup, so we will find a solution for you. Just come to us with your analytical challenge and we will help you. With the Vanquish Duo, you can really get increased productivity within one system stack without sacrificing on the space in your lab. The charged aerosol detector is very good add-on for samples without chromophores, so it gives you the complete picture. And all of the Vanquish systems can be also seamlessly integrated into an Empower network if you are working with Empower. That was it from my end. Here's just again an overview of our nice systems and how they could look. And with that, I want to thank you for your attention and questions. I saw there are some in the chat box. Hannah, maybe you can translate those, or maybe you answered them already, right?
Yes, it's a lot of question about certificate. It's sent not for topics of presentation, only general question. Thank you, Alexandra, for this presentation. It was very useful, informative, and interesting. So thank you. And I think we will wait a few minutes for the question. And if it will be, I think you can help me to answer with this.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Якщо в когось є запитання, пишіть, будь ласка, в чат. Можливо, якщо у вас залишаться якісь питання або більше вам потрібної інформації про самі системи, можете зв'язуватися з нами безпосередньо або на info.alt, наприклад, написати, і ми надамо вам відповідь, як тільки побачимо ваш запит і по можливості. Тому, я думаю, зараз почекаємо трошки ваших запитань. Якщо щось буде, то тоді з радістю вам допоможемо і відповімо. Ще, до речі, хотіла сказати всім, що в цій презентації не було слайдів про програмне забезпечення, так яким управляються всі хроматографи Thermo, тому запрошуємо вас на наш майбутній вебінар, який відбудеться 19 грудня. Він буде присвячений програмному забезпеченню, відповідності програмного забезпечення всім регуляторним вимогам. Також цю презентацію буде проводити колега з компанії Thermo Fisher Scientific, тому будемо раді бачити вас на наступному нашому вебінарі. Якщо немає запитань, я думаю, ми можемо завершувати наш вебінар. Всім дякую за увагу. Дякую, що виділили час, прослухали наш вебінар. Сподіваюсь, це було корисно. Всім гарного дня, до побачення. Thank you, Alexandra. I think we can finish it. And thank you for presentation and your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. Have a good day.
And you. Bye.
Bye-bye.